Hello and welcome back to the CPO Strategy Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Sean Parch, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Linda Chuan, Chief Procurement Officer at Box. In today's conversation, we'll centre on the art of being a change agent, how to manage your team effectively amid transformation, and also the impact of technology and its continued influence in procurement. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to the CPO Strategy Podcast.
Hi, Linda, and welcome to the CPO Strategy Podcast today. Are you well?
Good. Thanks for having me.
No, absolutely. Pleasure to have you here. It looks really sunny where you are. Are you having a good summer? Is it nice where you are?
Yes. Good summer. It's been hot, but really good. Exciting. Lots of events, lots of busy things to do at work and keeping up with all of the innovations that's been happening in the marketplace.
For sure. Have you had any chance to get away or anything? A bit of a break in between the busy schedule?
Actually, not really, but it's been a little too busy. However, I do plan on taking some time off, maybe towards the end of the year for Christmas, New
Good.
Year timeframe. Yeah,
Absolutely. Recharge the batteries and good to go
absolutely.
again.
Yeah,
What
I need it soon.
Yeah. What I love to do when I speak to people like yourselves, I love to find out their why and why procurement was the place for them. For you, where did it really start? Why was sort of procurement such an interesting industry, and how did you sort of find yourself here?
Oh, I actually started my career as a public accountant auditor. I worked at KPMG for a few years and decided after actually 2 years or so, because I was there for a little while, that the auditing process was not that interesting after you kind of learned the basics and understood where the risks are to look for on the financial statements within a company. And then I took a private job with a GE Capital at the time. It was a container leasing industry company called Genstar a long time ago. The founder and president happened to sort of tap me on the shoulder. I was in the accounting department heading up everything. I was responsible for everything that was an asset on the P&L and on the balance sheet. And then he happened to tap me on the shoulder and ask me, "Hey, we need to start a official procurement organization. Would you be interested?" And then I said to him, "Why me? I've never done anything like this before." And he said two things. He goes, "Why not?" Right? He goes, "Don't worry. You can't do anything worse than what we don't have today. One, and two, I won't fire you." And so based on those two
Great
things,
story.
I right. So I've got my job security protected. So I decided to go ahead and sort of switch over to the procurement side. And at that time, there was no undergrad, degree that you can take. There was no podcasts. There was no webinars. There's no conferences about anything related to procurement, supply chain, and so on. And so I had the benefit of leveraging the big GE knowledge. And at that time, I happened to catch sort of the tail end of Jack Welch's legendary career, where he had initially started the whole Six Sigma study and process within GE and GE Capital. I was able to sort of leverage that training, a very rare, apparently, very rare black belt from those days. I will never do it again. It was very challenging with lots of numbers and statistics, but it did drive this foundation of always looking for doing things and processes, especially right the first time around, so that you don't have to worry about refixing, rework, retrain, anything RE related. That means cost and money to the company. And so that left a sort of a great foundation for me in terms of learning on the job, putting in processes in place that is sort of really thought out and designed in such a way that we're getting the right inputs as best we can from the beginning, and then so that we can get the right outputs for those inputs. And so, yeah, and I decided it was, I've been a practitioner for over 25, 30 years now, that I'll openly admit to. And I've been
I bet
doing
it's
this a
flown by.
while.
I bet it's
Yeah.
flown by.
And because I love the varieties, like every day is not the same thing. I enjoy the variety. I enjoy the different challenges. Even when you do a sort of a renewal agreement negotiation with a supplier, whether it's critical or not, it's never the same, year in and year out. And so that provides me with a lot of variety. I'm a sort of a type A personality. I get bored quickly. And so I found this whole area of procurement to be interesting enough to have kept me as a practitioner for over 25, 30 years now.
Interesting and challenging, I bet. And as you say, 25 years is a long time, whatever you do.
Yes.
But for you, have you noticed just sort of how quickly it's transformed and changed? I mean, it must look
Oh my
completely
gosh.
unrecognizable to the one that you joined all those years ago.
Of course. Yes, I have. I think, procurement, it started out as purchasing for mostly manufacturing companies decades ago. And then a few more decades ago, it sort of evolved from purchasing to procurement, where the practice and the profession required more skills around understanding contract verbiage and how the commercial terms would impact the business and so on. And then from, I say, purchasing to procurement, a little bit more sort of skill set required, legal terms, understanding contracts, all the way to now what we know as strategic sourcing. Debatable. I do feel like strategic sourcing is a whole sort of a different, more strategic, higher end, value added practice that kind of feeds into procurement with just the contracting portion, and even eventually over to maybe the purchasing side, where we talk about issuing purchase recs and purchase orders and managing that portion. But with COVID, actually, the more recent pandemic, I think we, as the procurement professionals, we are now sort of almost mandated or required to be even more than strategic sourcing and being able to add value to the company. We're almost asked to even be more of a foreseer, like
Mm.
being able to look ahead and think about the macroeconomics as well as the microeconomics and how it could impact the company, and sort of get that translation to company impact earlier on, and be able to help either promote or prevent large risks, or promote opportunities within the company, so that the company can then maximize what's happening out there in the marketplace. Versus, as we've seen with COVID and the pandemic, everybody was sort of, reacting to what happened versus trying to be prepared for what was coming.
I know, and that's the issue. Nobody can predict a pandemic. That's the nature of these
Right.
things. Isn't
Right.
it?
Right. And so to summarize it though, so procurement purchasing, I feel like, was sort of the practice, but also kind of looking back a bit, right? And there was a lot of like using accounts payable
Mm,
and spend management, which is to me the back end of the process. And so now I think even with the pandemic push, we're
mm,
now forced to be even more strategic and be more, I would say, up and to the left of the process, to where we're really adding value and looking at things from a more strategic perspective. And so, yeah, so it's definitely, the whole profession has definitely evolved, especially over the last 10, maybe even 15 years,
mm.
where,
Really
yes,
accelerated,
it
isn't
has,
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
it has evolved and changed, and we're becoming more and more strategic to the company, or to a company.
And to discuss companies, maybe you can sort of start by telling us a little bit about your role with Box. What does that involve, and just sort of how exciting is your life from a day-to-day perspective?
Yes. It's very exciting. I love being at Box. I joined Box about 4 years ago now, a little bit over 4 years. And I was recruited to help with establishing sort of the function, the procurement function itself. And build it from the ground up, from building a team to bringing in systems, establishing processes that work. And I call it, at Box, any engagement, any relationship with a third party provider, whether it's a buying widgets or purchasing services or even SaaS across the entire company, where we would consider like direct materials or indirect is all sort of under my scope. And globally, as Box has sort of grown as well, to reach Japan and Poland and Europe through London and Australia. And so we are a growing company even during the pandemic. So it's been very exciting, and I think it's my third maybe role to sort of establish and build out sourcing and procurement organization from the ground up, and I find that to be so rewarding. And so and I learn also because each company is different. So in terms of, prior to Box, I was at Thomson Reuters. Prior to Thomson Reuters, I was at Salesforce for over, wow, 8 years. I think that was my longest tenure anywhere. And every company's a little different. So what might have worked at the previous companies may not work at Box. And so I love the having to tailor and think about which processes and what systems could work that would fit each company's specific and unique culture, executive level preferences, as well as the employees. And I found that to be so rewarding, being able to help contribute towards margin and the bottom line.
I was going to say, you like that blank canvas then. You like being able to go into an organisation and being able to put your own stamp on it and make that mark.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And I know that your passion is to make things as easy for the end user as possible, isn't it? Maybe you can sort of discuss by some of the strategies that you sort of implement, in order to make that happen.
No, I think it's one of those aspects that people in procurement may not think about often. And so I tend to think about procurement organizations as a service organization within a company. We're like a small entrepreneur company within a startup, within a company. Our customers are our internal employees. And as the company grows, as your employee base grows, our customer base grows, right? And so to me, it's really imperative that we think about the user experience because yes, every company, we all have policies. We can check off, yes, Sarbanes-Oxley and compliance, we have our policy set, but who really does ensure that we are compliant to those policies? And a lot of other larger companies and more well-established companies, it's probably easier to make it a mandate. You have to follow this and you have to follow that. But I find that with high-tech companies and even in the high-tech industry, it's very much please, pretty please, kind of a more of a come with us versus versus you have to comply, kind of a policing kind of a environment. And so I find that my strategy was, in order to establish more of a centralized process where all of the employees would have to sort of come through this one system and one intake, if you will, request for anything that people would need to engage with a provider, a third party. Whether it's like getting an NDA in place or asking for a proof of concept agreement or requesting sourcing's help to conduct an RFP, that it has to be so user friendly, or else people are not going to want to come to you. So it's that whole please, pretty please. And if you make it easy for them and you incorporate and design the process in such a way that the policy is already incorporated, so people are really following policy as they're going through this process, but they shouldn't have to feel it. Is sort of my way of thinking about it. They should be. It's almost like, oh, I need to order something, or I need to engage with a supplier for their services, and they're just going through the process, but they're actually going through the actual compliance policy, and ensuring that we're doing all the right things to protect the company. But they shouldn't have to feel the burden of it.
Are you
Yes.
really noticing the true benefit of that? Is that coming to the fore?
Oh, absolutely. It comes in the form of adoption and engagement. And so I've always, people who have heard me speak at other conferences, I've always talked about, if you can spend millions of dollars and invest multi-millions of dollars in implementing a software solution, but if you don't have engagement and you don't have utilization, I call it, like, what's the utilization of the software? If it's less than 10%, it's basically shelfware. You've just wasted all of your investment, all of your capital. And I think some executives that I've experienced in other companies have made sort of that mistake of, oh, we're mandating we have to go end to end on this older technology and this platform, after spending multi millions, in terms of the implementation and investing in the solution, and they find, oh, 2 years later, it's still either not implemented fully,
Mhm.
or there's some integration issues. You're not getting the full benefit of what was sort of sold to you.
Mhm.
Those are all lessons that I've learned in my experiences, that maybe the user experience and the UI portion should have as much weight, if not more weight, than how the solution actually functions. Because if you can't get people to use it, it's yeah, you're not getting ROI.
I think it's the thing, isn't it? Because technology is quite divisive, isn't it? Some people love this, technological change, and others just they hate it, don't they? It's a little bit like Marmite. I don't know if you have Marmite where you are, but it's this food that either people love on their toast
Oh
or
yeah,
they can't stand it. I
right,
love it,
exactly.
by
Yeah.
the way.
No, I
um,
hear you. I totally, yeah, I can relate to that.
but yeah, it's hard, isn't it? And with any change, people just love legacy systems, don't they? They love their way of working. They know what they know, and then you've got the others that are at the forefront of innovation. And I think it's fair to say that you're certainly in the latter, aren't you? You're a change agent, aren't you?
Yes, I try to be. And to your point about those people who like the systems that they already know, so unless I can show them a new process or a new system that's much easier or more efficient, and it can save them hours, and days on doing something, they're not going to want to come over. And so I'm actually, to your point about being a change agent, I'm actually already thinking about the whole change management program, at the forefront, at the beginning of when I need to select a solution, especially if there was an RFP involved, rather than waiting until, oh, we've selected a solution. Now we're implementing in the implementation phase. Towards the implementation phase, oh, now we're sort of going live in a few months. Now we think about the change management portion of it. That's, to me, kind of too late. Change management happens when a project has been approved for you to go find a solution, or when the project has been sort of initiated by your senior executives through, whether it's a, I don't know, investment committee meeting, or commitment, or through a software review committee. Each company has their own flavor, but once that's sort of like that been blessed, yes, you can go
Mhm.
out and go look for the solution. And that's where change management actually starts.
And I think that's the key thing as well. What you just mentioned there about offering them an alternative that's actually going to benefit them, because sometimes there can be people that say, no, 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 let's just do it this way. Let's do it another way. It's not necessarily going to be better, but let's do it. But if you can sort of prove to them that this way that you're going to offer is actually going to help them out, increase efficiency, get rid of the sort of boring, sort of cumbersome tasks,
Right, right.
then it makes sense, doesn't it? It's in their interests, then, isn't it?
Sure, absolutely. If I can automate, if I can make things easier, if I can send out sort of reminders, and follow up, that's the biggest, I think, that's the biggest issue with sort of the procurement process. There's not enough time, nor are there enough resources to do that manual follow up of tasks that maybe doesn't get done. Following up with the suppliers, please get us your information. Following up with the end users, the stakeholders, hey, what are your requirements? Does this look good? Does that look good? And so, sort of part of being that service oriented function, we're also very customer service oriented, or that I'm very customer service oriented, and I try to sort of help my teams sort of also have that mindset. Again, we're servicing our internal business partners who are our customers, and if they don't come back and engage with us again, time and again, it's very, very difficult to try to increase our managed spend across the companies. That's one of those success metrics where you know that you have an effective
Mhm.
sourcing organization or procurement organization, is sort of by the percentage of spend that's under management. And so you can't have, it's hard to have people come to you and say, hey, have your stakeholders, hey, help me with my spend, because they own their budgets, right? And so if I can't sort of service them in that way, there's no way they'll come back. And if you tell them, hey, you must do it because of compliance and because of policies, that's not the right way to develop that relationship.
Mm.
So I also say procurement people are also can be the best salespeople
Mm.
too, because we're often in companies where the employees, the people who own the budget, don't have to come to us, even though yes, there's a policy, put that aside. But to have them want to come to us and engage with us, we have to develop that relationship, that trust, within our stakeholder groups, very quickly, as well as continue to show value and continue to service the organization day in and day out again. Because the thing that's sort of the last most memorable, or actually least memorable, is like, what have you done for me lately? And once you've done it, once you've like delivered umpteen millions in savings, it's the next thing, right? So
Yeah,
what else are you going to do?
you
And
got
so
short
it's like,
memory.
right. Oh my gosh, very short memory. It's like, okay, we did this wonderful deal, a little time to celebrate. Maybe if you get that, if you even get time to celebrate a good
I
win or a
argue
good
with 12,
negotiation,
isn't it?
yeah, it's
People
the
in
next
the
okay, what
sweets.
else are you going to do? Well, what else are you going to do? And so, but it does keep us on our toes in terms of like having to look ahead more. And I like that aspect of procurement, and the strategic side of sourcing, where you're trying to look ahead more, right? Be a little bit more proactive versus the back end side.
Mhm, mhm. It's
Yeah.
interesting about the trust side of things as well, isn't it? 'Cause you
Yes.
need to be able to trust the people that you work with, otherwise it's just not gonna work long term, is it? Some people say it's almost like having a relationship, isn't it? You both need to work at it, and you both need to be willing to listen to the other in order to succeed, and it's very similar to
Exactly.
suppliers, isn't it?
Right, absolutely. And at Box, I mean, I talk a little bit about the culture at Box, the culture of collaborativeness, the culture of
Mhm,
transparency, the culture of inclusiveness and
mhm,
equity. One of my favorites is, being an owner also of the company. Think like you own the company. What would you do? As well, our one other value that we often talk about is sort of make whoever it is you look up to, make that person proud. And so always try to think about doing, the right things by the right people. And so I found at Box, because the culture is so special, and it's truly, they try to walk the talk versus
mm.
just talk the talk. Talking the talk is cheap, but actually, right? So, but actually walking the talk and
Yeah,
making that culture real and live every single day with our two founders, the CEO and the CFO, Aaron and Dylan. It's truly a company that I personally really, really enjoy being a part of.
mhm,
And so the culture itself makes it so easy to collaborate and build that relationship, build
mm,
that trust with my fellow boxers, my fellow employees, knowing that the procurement sourcing organization, is there to help protect them, to help service them, to help make the company, better. And doing it together is obviously much easier than trying to push through by yourself. And I call it, like, with every deal, it takes a small village. So we have a really, really good relationship with our legal department and with our vendor trust department. And so, yeah, and so I am enjoying a level of sort of engagement and utilization
yeah,
of our organization more than any other company I've been blessed to be a part of.
that's great to hear. Do you think that's Box's secret sauce? It's the people side, it's the talent?
I do think so. I think the culture is Box's secret sauce. I
Mm,
think we're able to attract wonderful and really great talent
mm,
um, because of that culture, and people want to feel part of a great culture, being included, the transparency of the management in terms of how the business is doing, the innovations that's
mm,
coming out of Box. Especially, I've been there 4 years, and it's like every year there's at least 1 to 2 really large product announcements, as well
mhm,
all of the other improvements day in and day out on all of our solutions that we offer, to include, the security part with Box Shield, and recently, just a year ago, Box Sign, our e-signature process. Or our e-signature functionality within Box, the workflow feature. There's also the collaboration feature. And so if you think about putting all of your top secret, it's like most important, maybe even IP, into a enterprise grade platform that is very secure, where you can socialize and collaborate with only the people that you want to socialize and collaborate with this workflow approval, with the security, with the signature, e-signature. And we've also recently announced Box AI. How
What does that
amazing is that? That is just going to be, I just can't wait. That's going to be sort of a game changer for not just the industry, but also for Box as a whole. If you think about how you have all of your content on one platform, and you're able to, extract or gain AI out of the stuff, the unstructured data. I don't know if anybody realizes, people realize like a majority of your company data, maybe 90%, at least north of 70% of your company data is unstructured. That's like untapped gold mine of insights and analytics that you just can't get your hands on. But with Box AI, you'll be able to do that. I'm really excited because I've always, to your point, I've always been sort of the type of person to raise my hand when there's like new technology. When Box Sign was first sort of being developed within the company, I was like, procurement, like here, we could be customer zero, tested on us. Love to be able to provide inputs and improvements to the products, so knowing that we are the big users of this kind of functionality, and then be able to push that out to our customer base. How cool is that? And so
I think,
so that's
yeah,
like, that's not even your regular, day-to-day sourcing procurement like
yeah.
job, right? Role. And for me to be able to participate in something like that, I think it's pretty amazing.
You get to be the guinea pig, don't you? You get to. There'll be some people that actually want to be, front and center of that, and others like hide in the background, and be like, "Oh, I watch first. Let me make sure, make sure it's okay. Take cover."
Right? Make
Um,
sure it's okay. Well,
yeah,
I definitely am one of those like, let's do it, let's try it. And if it works, awesome. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. Oh, that's
yeah,
another thing about Box's culture too. If it doesn't work, we call it GSD, getting stuff done, except they use
yeah.
another word.
Wonder
Getting
about
stuff done, right? I say stuff. But that's also, that incorporates, if you do something, you make a smart decision. It's a smart choice, smart decision. Um, but it fails. It
yeah.
doesn't work. Fine. You learn from that
Fail
and
fast.
go on to learn from it, get up, sort of, if you fall, you get up right away, brush off
Yeah,
yourself, and just keep going and onto the next thing, because even though it failed, you learned something from that, trying it out. And so I'm very much that type of person. And so as you can tell, I'm like, I think I found my tribe.
yeah.
I talk
Well,
a
that's a good
little
thing
bit.
about that, though, isn't it? Otherwise, if you're fearful all the time, you'll never do anything, and that's in all
Right.
sectors. It's not just procurement. That's in all walks of life.
Yes,
If you're always
exactly.
sort of worried and sort of hanging back a little bit and just waiting to see,
And yeah.
you'll never jump in the pool, would you?
Right. And then don't you think though, Sean, that if you're just kind of waiting and sitting back behind, then you're not getting that first advantage,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, no,
First to
absolutely.
market
Yeah.
advantage, the first to try advantage, the
You'll
first
always
to
be
be,
reactive then, won't you? And then you'll always be behind. You're never going to set any standard. You're always going to be following what everyone else is doing.
yes,
That's
exactly.
no way to be successful long term, is it?
No, that's no way to be successful, or especially in the high tech industry, right? If you fall behind on your innovations, it's really, really hard to catch up. And so it's always, I love this. It's part of Six Sigma too, continuous improvement. So even after you've put in, a process or designed a system the way it should be working and so on, that I continuously have my team, my operations team, look at, is this the right way to do things? We designed it to meet the business needs maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Is the business, or has the business changed and evolved to where does that process or does that system still meet our needs? And so it's a continuous thing. It's not one and done kind of a model, but I definitely keep continuing to push, like, hey, how do we continue to make it even more efficient, even more automated? Because I have to get my process, my systems, our systems that we implement to be able to scale with the company when it grows to the size we want it to be and continues thereafter. Not when, oh, we're here now, we've reached the size, and then now we're like trying to catch up with all of the rest of our systems and processes. That's again reactive, right? And that's too late. So I have to be more proactive and get in front of it all, thinking 3 years ahead and 5 years ahead. I don't know how many people, that might be a good survey to
Mhm.
ask. other procurement heads, heads of the department, do they have like a 3-year roadmap plan
Mm.
or 5-year roadmap plan? I mean, I have one. I definitely look forward to 3 years, 5 years from now. What
You have to
I
be able to
think,
change it as well, though. As I think it's
yes,
that you have to be able to adapt, and it's not like stick rigidly to that 3 year, that 5 year plan, because as we know, these black swan events, they do come up, and things
yes,
change, don't they? And you have to be able to
yes.
adapt.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, but at least you have some plan.
Yeah,
You kind of don't know. You're not going to know how your path is going to be, what your
yeah.
journey is going to be, unless you kind of think about where you want to end up
You'll have
at.
A to B, but how you get there, you need it's the remains to be seen, doesn't it?
Yes.
As you say,
What I
you need the plan, you need the yellow brick road, don't you? You need to have the, the way
the
to
yellow brick,
try to use the Wizard of Oz.
right? Well, the yellow brick road with the magic, right?
Yeah,
With the
yeah.
Kalinda magic. I call it magic, but it's like I share with my teams, and one of my favorite quotes is from Bruce Lee. This year happens to be, I think, Bruce Lee's 50th.
Oh, wow.
Memory, of his
Yeah,
passing. But
yeah.
one of my favorite sayings that he's, you have to be like water. Be
Water.
like water. Be like water. Where, if you're going down a path, right, and you have an obstacle in your way, you have to figure out a way to go around it, right? So you
Mm,
can continue your flow. However, over time, what happens to that obstacle? The water, just because of going around it, erodes it, right? And it really makes the path even smoother. And then the water overcomes it actually, over time. So it's like, yes, you have to be nimble, you have to be adaptive, and you have to be flexible, but you're still going down this path and having sort of that foresight
mm,
of where you think you might want to be, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, or else you really don't know what you're working on or what you should be working on. And so when I first joined Box, I shared with the executives, I want to be able to have a vision or a view of my entire supply base where I can sort of provide and report out on all of my commitments, all of the contracts that are expiring, and get in front of managing all those contracts versus, having your people, your stakeholders, your customers, right, call you up and say, "Hey, Linda, come help us negotiate a contract, but it expired 2 months ago." Right? How much leverage will we have? It's kind of difficult, right? Or we have this contract that kind of, and I'm not saying this is that Box. I'm just using it as an overall overall example through my experiences with different companies. Or you get people calling you up and say, "Hey, Linda, try to negotiate us out of this contract that we've already signed, but it's got really unfavorable terms." Right? Well, okay, why did we sign
wave your
this in the
magic
first
wand
place?
again.
Right, exactly. So there was a lot of, definitely trying to fix and catch up. And in order to solve for that, you have to have that visibility, right, in terms of what's coming down the pipe from a contract portfolio management perspective. And so that's sort of one of the things that I promised as one of my goals to be able to deliver, and I did. And so it's yes. So it's kind of feels kind of good to be able to say,
Nice to reflect
two
on these
years,
things, isn't it? Yeah,
right?
yeah. You
Like
guys
2 years from now, right? So yeah, I say what you do, say what you're going to do, and then do what you say.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's important to celebrate the milestones as well and enjoy the journey, because I think, and this is the same for me, I've said for a lot of people that I speak to, I think you get so carried away with looking on to the next thing, don't you? That you
Right.
don't always stop to enjoy the moment and celebrate the wins that you do go through. Is that,
Yeah.
or are you able to do that? Are
I
you able to
try. Well, I
stop?
tried to I tried to celebrate it for my team, the people who are on my team. I think maybe that's one thing, maybe as a leader, I don't sort of I lead the team, and I work very much from a we work together
Yeah,
kind of model versus it's all me, because I can't do my role without my team. Like you have to have a strong backbone, right? And so I do celebrate them, and so I don't, maybe my teammates tell me I don't celebrate me as much, but it's okay.
yeah,
It's okay because I'm the one sort of providing that foresight or that vision, and I kind of guide them, and I direct them, and I push. I'm also very much, I don't know if you can tell, I'm also very kind of impatient in terms of time. Like my my pet peeve words
mm,
are if somebody tells me I'm waiting. Like with the word waiting, I'm waiting for something. I'm waiting for this, or I'm waiting for somebody to get back to me. I'm waiting. That's just like sends my blood pressure up. I'm like, what do you mean you're waiting? Have you called? Did
Yeah.
you stalk them? Did you send them emails? Like, what do you mean you're just waiting, right? So I'm very much very
Yeah.
action and execution type of person, because I also I'm very hard on myself, where if I tell something, if I tell my senior levels I'm going to do this for you,
Mm.
um I really push to try to get something delivered as soon as I can. It may not be 100% perfect, but at least maybe if it's 80-90% there, then it's like, okay, I will continue to continuous innovation and continuous
Yeah.
improvement. I'll continue to sort of iterate on it, make it better, but here it is, right?
Yeah.
And so, because if you wait for things to be 100% or even more than 195 something percent perfect, you may not ever be able to
You'd be forever
deliver it.
waiting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because it takes so long, right? By the time you think, oh, it's probably, 100, close enough,
Yeah.
98, 100% close enough, the time frame by which the company may need it has probably passed. It's like the company's already gone on to other things, right? So you have to be able to do very sort of quick deliverables and quick wins to also show that you're executionable, you're delivering, and you're bringing value like quickly to the company. I think most companies these days, how many executives do you think would wait, like if you tell them, oh, it'll take me 3 to 5 years to get you something, to get you some value back? I don't think
Too
so.
long. Yeah.
Yeah, well, especially during the pandemic, right? I did have senior levels come to me and say, "Hey, we need today. We need results right now. It can't be 6 months, 6 months from now, a year from now. We need now." And so I was very much challenged with how do I deliver now,
Mm.
right? So that was really really interesting. But I some executives, some people might think I'm crazy, but I actually enjoyed it. I mean, I was like, because I was being pushed, I was being challenged with
Yeah.
how do we do things quicker, faster, even though I don't have perfect data, I don't have all the information, but I still had to kind of figure it out. And
Bit
I
of pressure from
kind
you,
of
so you would like it. As
right.
some people would have been like, no, 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 I hate this. This is horrible. But for someone like yourself, the change agent, this it all feeds into that, isn't it? This is new. This is disruptive. This is
Yes.
fresh. So
It's
you
well,
know,
and when I was in it, I didn't think of it that way.
yeah.
But
I
now
mean,
that I can kind of look back, oh, yes,
exactly.
it helped me grow.
Mm.
It helped me think about things outside of the box, no pun intended, but really, really challenge all the things that I've learned and experienced in my last 25 years or so as a procurement professional. Like we used to do things this way, but really, is that the most efficient, most the fastest way to gain ROI, to get results
Mm.
quickly? And so that really challenged my traditional way of thinking, because
Yeah.
if you've been doing this a long time, so I've done this way and it worked
Yeah.
that time, but times have definitely changed, especially,
Absolutely.
as you know, sort of with the whole chat gpt and the AI
Yeah.
explosion since what, January, February, earlier this year. Everybody is about this whole chat gpt technology.
It is
um,
great though, isn't it? It is fantastic. The possibilities of it are really endless, and I think it is just the start, isn't it?
Yes,
I
but then
think
you
about
also, to
it.
your point, I'm the type, you're like me. I'm the person. Yes, this is awesome.
Yeah,
Wonderful. I see all of the potentials that it could bring us.
yeah,
I see all of the automation and the having data and information that is actionable, and
mm,
and having those insights at my fingertips. I
yeah.
find that exciting. I find that just like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get my hands on it. But to your point, some people are like, no, I'm gonna stand back and see how it's gonna work.
Yeah,
Maybe.
no, exactly that. But I think some people are also worried about jobs as well, aren't they? And I think that's a concern from some sections, that potentially it's going to replace people's positions. However, I think on the other side of that, and I think this is probably something that you'll agree with, it's just going to take all the time-consuming tasks away. It's going to free us
Right.
up. We're going to be able to do the things that matter, the things that require thought. Whereas the boring stuff, the admin that takes ages, humans hours to do, It's
Right.
going to
I mean,
machine
I
learning.
I don't see it as taking jobs away. I see it as more improving our
Mm,
job, our work life. Most people don't want to do those mundane, everyday, low level data entry, data check kind of tasks. But it is, to me, it is so important because if you have, again, Six Sigma, if you don't have people or the right system checking that the data going in is quality, is of good quality, then you can't count on the reporting and the analytics on the back end, right? But people don't want to do it,
mm,
right? So wouldn't it be perfect? It would be a perfect replacement with AI and robotics and machine learning to do all of these things that people don't really want to do anyway, and then leaves us more time or more skill set development so that we can develop and go forward with that skill set of there's always got to be some oversight. There's
mhm,
always got to be some kind of monitoring. There's always got to be some kind of a human judgment. I don't think we're at the point yet where machines can replace judgment and thinking. I don't think.
not
Not
yet.
yet.
No,
Not
no,
yet.
I think
Kind of
wait a couple
scary.
of years, you know.
Yeah. No, Terminator, the whole movie, the Skynet looking over everybody.
Yeah.
But it is, I do believe though, it is important that we have to sort of have an eye of
Mm,
sort of like that our morality and doing the right thing ethically
mhm,
by people, and making sure that we're using technology responsibly. But yes, let's say we do all of that. The level of sort of job satisfaction that it could bring to many people
mhm,
is, I think, is should outweigh people's fears. I don't think we should be fearing it. I think we should be like looking at it like, hey, if we can get robots who don't mind doing these mundane low level
yeah,
tasks, then I can then get freed up to really do the analytical, the
mm,
thinking, the insights, and looking at trends.
mhm,
To me, that's where the fun is, the more rewarding work is.
absolutely,
And so I think that's where we should be sort of thinking. I'm That's how I'm thinking about it anyway with my
definitely.
teams. And so yeah, my teams are excited too to like get our hands on the newest and see how do I use this for
Yeah,
procurement, or we spend so much time managing customers and revenue. Yes, I get it with their top line, but I think it's just as important, if not a company sort of secret weapon, if you manage your spend like earlier on as the company is starting out, even as a sort of early startup, before you get too big. Most companies don't think about procurement and spend management until maybe after they go
mhm,
IPO, and then sometimes it's kind of too late because like you're already sort of wasting money and not leveraging your spending power. But if you think about it strategically from the beginning, as early as you can, right? If you can keep your costs down, I mean, it should be logical, right? You keep your costs down early on. You keep your cost of goods down earlier on. Your margins should already sort of show up and be there earlier on, and so on. So you know what I mean? In terms of just the whole how the whole company could grow and grow your margins and maintaining your costs and so forth. So if you're growing your top line and you're also managing your costs down, so this whole upward and downward effect, like you the company, any company should be like working and doing really, really well. But you'd be surprised at how many companies don't do that. I've seen it again and again and again where sort of procurement is probably not as valued. Where
mhm,
like you hear a lot of procurement professionals lament about how we're second class citizens,
yeah,
how we're just an afterthought, and
mhm,
everything is on sales and engineering. Well, I say smart companies like Box really think about also the other side, managing your cost of goods sold, managing your overall costs and keeping that down,
mhm,
and sending and spending what our CEO calls smartly. Like he has a tagline calling his whole initiative, and he calls it like smart procurement. And I just find that just amazingly like, oh my gosh, it's on top of mind at these executive levels. And we're not only growing top line, but we're also really practically managing our spend,
you definitely
like from
found
the
your
get go.
tribe then. Yeah, you found your
Right.
like-minded team.
Yes. I was like, finally, I think I found my tribe. Because that's the hardest thing, right? As a working professional, finding the right fit. And people, I don't know if people, think about it's so important because, if you can't align maybe your own values and your, priorities with a company's
Mm,
executive levels, it's very difficult. It's very difficult
definitely.
to find your work rewarding. But when it's aligned, it can be so amazing.
Definitely. So moving on to the future now, obviously we've sort of touched on what that could hold. Just
Mm,
how exciting, and I know we've sort of talked about how exciting it is, but if you were to put it into sort of a couple of words, just how exciting is the possibility of procurement in the future? Like, I think it's a really sort of unique moment, isn't it? It's on the
yes.
cusp of something really amazing. I guess in your view, what what could the future hold?
Oh my goodness. Magic. Magic for procurement. So if you imagine whether it's a pandemic, whether it's, the macroeconomics with the war going on in Ukraine and Russia, or whether there's a tsunami somewhere in the other, part of the world, for companies to be able to respond to these changes, to these happenings that it's out of your control, you have to be able to have some level of centralized visibility around your commitments and your spends. And so I don't think that's going to ever change. I think the pandemic basically kind of shortened or made that need and that requirement much more immediate than, say, oh, I'll wait for like 3 years from now, 5 years from now. And so I find the whole procurement sort of function in the area to be, we will become so much more important and much more integral to a company's strategy, that the more we can make data and insights, actionable insights at our fingertips, when we should consider renewing with a supplier, when should we go out to look for a new partner, right? And being ahead of that is going to be crucial to any procurement organization going forward. But even more than that, to be able to then, the step before sourcing, actually I'm trying to get like way ahead, like ahead of, like, even before the whole management and reviewing of your current portfolio spend, but to be able to like have that input into the company's strategy, and maybe even product roadmaps, to say, hey, we see these things happening in the marketplace, and I strongly recommend we should blah blah blah, whatever that is, right? To be able to have enough market information from a procurement perspective to provide that kind of advice and influence to the company, I think is where we're going to go.
Sounds so promising.
It
Thank you
is.
so much.
This is the best time
Yeah.
yet to join, to become a procurement professional versus 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
Thank you so much for those insights. It's amazing. I've one more point that I want to raise with you, and that's if I was to take you back to the start of your career, and I know it wasn't that long ago. Um,
Thank you.
how
Yes, 10.
would you do anything differently if you could go back back there with everything that you know now?
Uh,
Would you change anything?
well, I probably couldn't if I wanted to, because there was no information. There was nothing, there was no books I could read, really. There was no there was not a practice of supply chain. If, boy, I guess if I could do anything, I would hopefully, like, in my career, as I was, developing my early experiences, to have more studies, more information, more data, I don't know, just have more mentorship, more advice people could give me. But I kind of had to figure it out on
Mm,
my own. And so maybe that trying to figuring it out on my own, on the job, applying different techniques, different thought processes, I have developed my own point of view. And
mhm,
so that's what I'm trying to develop and train my teams to do. Like, come to me or develop your own point of view and share them with me. It doesn't have to be right, but have a thought of, like, maybe we should try something this way or that way. We can try it, and then if it doesn't work, great, that's fine, we learned it didn't work, right? But
mhm,
having that, developing that whole sort of judgment and point of view muscle, and having, to your point, I love the fact that you called it out in terms of like having that environment of trust and
mhm.
being able to not be afraid. that's the best we can have. And so, yeah, I wish I had a little bit more mentorship when I was growing up in this protection in this profession, in this trade. But I did learn a lot, sort of bumping my head into the wall of like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe it's this and maybe it's that, because there was just nothing really to be had other than my Six Sigma training that I was able to be blessed with. I said I won't do it again, but it was really, really foundational and critical to how I have been sort of pushing ahead in my career, of thinking about how to establish things, how to build things from the ground up, as much right as possible the first time around, but also scalable. And so, yeah, I
Oh,
wish somebody
brilliant.
would have taught me more.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Linda. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the CPO Strategy Podcast today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the CPO Strategy Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, make sure that you subscribe or like our social media pages so that you never miss an episode. I'll see you next time.